Gouache painting? Oil painting? Which one is better for learning? If you don't know how to choose between gouache and oil, here are some insights for you to help you decide. To compare gouache and oil, I will be painting this pair of shoes, one with oil and one with gouache. And you can tell it's quite different. I've tried to be accurate and have the same colors in both mediums, which are white, black, vermilion red, and warm yellow. I don't have exactly the same colors in gouache and oil, but you got the idea. And I've made a drawing on a specific paper, which is a canvas paper. It has a nice texture. It's 300 GSM, and it's perfect for oil. And to be fair, I wanted to use it as well with gouache. And it might be a bit more difficult with gouache, but we will see that. And you see there is a soft grain. What I will need for oil painting are two brushes. They are synthetic brushes, long handle, because usually I'm painting on canvas and standing, but here it's easier if I do it on a table. And I'm using liquid. This is just to speed up the drying process. And there is no other medium I will be using. This one is really cool. You can soften the paint with it if you can open the bottle, of course. I'm mixing my colors and dipping my brush in a bit of liquid. It will help me to get the paint more fluid, and also it will speed up the drying process. This is one of the specificity of oil paint. It really dries. Actually, it never dries. It's just hardened. But let's say it's drying in days, even weeks or months or years, depending on how thick is your layer of paint. It has it really good sides because you can blend easily. You can really achieve nice effects. But it's not really suitable if you want to paint in a sketchbook, for example, or if you want to go plein air, you will have to take care of your fresh painting. The good point with a slow drying time is that you can really have nice blendings. This is really cool. You can place a dark color, a lighter one next to it, and you can blend the two easily with a third color, which is somewhere between the two colors. But downside is if you want to have clean edges, you have to be very careful when you place your brush strokes. Now with gouache, I don't need any medium, just tap water and you're good to go. And the brushes I'm using are synthetic flat brushes. As for oil painting, you really don't need fancy things. I like to paint with flat brushes, but of course you can use round brushes, and I will be using some because you have kind of details here. Gouache, unlike oil paint, is drying pretty fast. Believe me, if the weather is hot, it will dry in no time. So it's really cool in some sites because you can go plein air, you can use a sketchbook, and it will really be drying very fast. But downside, it's less easy to make nice blendings with gouache. You really need to be quick, very, very quick. And for this, you need to prepare your mixes of colors before blending. Something that is quite annoying with gouache paint is that you never get the same color when it's dry than when it's wet on the palette. And believe me, sometimes this shift in values can be really, really annoying. You don't have this problem with oil paint. It's pretty much what you see is what you get, quite. So sometimes I have to go back in my darkest colors with gouache to darken my values, because the first time I place them, they look fine, but once they are dry, they're not good enough. To switch colors with oil paint, you need to clean your brush. And I'm using a tissue. I should use a cloth. That would be easier to remove the excess paint. And then I will just go for the new color because everything is in the same range. But if you really want to have a clean brush between two colors, you have two options. Either you are using one brush per color, but it can really be expensive. Sometimes you will need a lot of brushes, Or you have to clean your brush between the colors, and you need to clean them very well, meaning removing the excess with a cloth, and then you can dip it in turpentine. And this is where oil painting can be kind of tricky for some people because there is a lot of chemical involved. Is this video helpful? If yes, please boop the like button. It really helps the video to spread across all the internet. Chemicals that you are using with oil painting, I am working with water mixable oil paint. And don't get me wrong, this is not to be mixed with water. Oh, I know, it's named like this, but it's not what it is. Actually, they should be named water washable oil painting because I'm using water only to clean my brushes and not to dilute the paint, for which I'm using liquid, and it works very well. So I was saying you want to clean your brush between two colors, and the best way is to remove with a cloth and then clean with a bit of water, and then you want to dry your brush because if you have too much water inside, it won't be easy to move the paint on the paper or the canvas. And talking about canvas, the big difference between gouache and oil paint is the kind of substrate you can use to paint on. With gouache, you are pretty much able to paint on anything you want, as long as it is thick enough to handle the paint. I mean, not copy paper, it will be too light. But regarding oil paint, you will need to prepare your substrate because, as the word says, there is oil inside, and if you are using regular paper, the oil will diffuse inside the paper and you will get a greasy paper, and that's ugly. So either you are using, like I do here, ready-made paper, which is made especially for oil with a priming on it, or you have to use something with gesso on it. And if you add gesso, you can paint on pretty much anything. I mean, paper, wood, canvas, rock even, if you are using the appropriate gesso. But keep this in mind, you can use oil paint, even with liquid, inside a sketchbook, or you will have a very oily back of the paper. Layering paint is very different with oil and gouache. With oil, as it's not drying very fast, if you try to layer when it's fresh, you will get mud. I have to say it. So if the colors are close enough, it will not be too visible and you will pretend you know how to do it. But if you are using a yellow and red and you want to layer them on top of each other, you will get orange, but not the orange you wanted. So you have to think about that. If you really want to layer for any reason, I don't know, you will have to wait for the first layer to dry, and it can take some time, even with liquid. I mean, liquid can help the drying time going to maybe an hour, it depends on the thickness of the layer. But with gouache, you're good to go. You can apply your first layer and go directly on top of it with another color as long as the first one is dry, which will take a couple of seconds even. So it can be good or it can be bad, it depends on your style really. Another big difference is the palette. With gouache, your paint will dry. No matter what you do, it will dry on the palette. So you have to squeeze a small amount of paint so you don't waste too much. And you can squeeze, you can spray water on your palette. This is what you see here on the right of the screen. I have sprayed maybe a bit too much water because my gray paint is bleeding, but never mind. But as long as you are adding water, you will get a more liquid paint. And sometimes if you want to have a creamy paint, that's not good. With oil painting, on the contrary, you may be able to keep your paint for a long time. Well, not for years. But if you squeeze too much and you have not used everything at the end of your painting session, you can keep it for the day after. It will be still manageable. Some colors may dry a bit faster than others, and you will have kind of a skin on top of it, but you can just remove it with your palette knife, and under it, it's still fresh. The only thing that will dry is the liquid. Liquid is really drying because this is what it does. It helps to dry faster. So it makes sense if the liquid blob is drying by itself. When it comes to fixing mistake like changing a color, blurring an edge, it's really easy to do it with paint, with oil paint, because it's still fresh, so you can just rub gently and you will get a smooth transition between the colors. This is really cool. Something you cannot do with gouache because your gouache is dry and you will have to re-wet it so you can achieve this smooth effect. And sometimes when you re-wet the paint, it gets more liquid and the pigments will start to behave a bit strangely. Regarding the style and the techniques you can achieve with both mediums, I have really tried to keep the same style in both shoes with flat brushes and straight edges and large visible brush stroke. And this is my usual style. Maybe yours is different, and I guess yours is different actually. I think my style is easier to achieve with gouache, just because I'm so used to gouache. But if you look at the other shoe, it's not so different from the gouache one. So what I'm saying is maybe crap actually. Still about my style, I like to go back with the first values I placed, and for oil paint I had to let it dry for one night before going on top of it and fix some really dark values. So between gouache and oil paint, which one is easier to learn? I would say it depends on your style. My style is best with gouache, I think, but it's also manageable with oil paint. It just requires a bit more work, a bit more technique. Just for this video, I wanted to compare the basics of it, but you can really do a lot of things with gouache and with oil as well. It's difficult to say. I know a lot of people are making a lot with oil. They can achieve very technical skills like glazing, impasto, and everything between. Gouache is more limited, even if you can do a lot of things with gouache. Well, you know which one I prefer. And you, which one do you prefer? Let me know in comments. But really, I would encourage you to use oil because it's not as messy. No, it's messy. It's not as difficult as you think. So it really depends on what you're ready to work with. And regarding the price, I have written a blog article that I have linked in the video under here in the box somewhere, where you can find my comparison with gouache prices. Are you ready to go on with oil paint?